Last, and I'll do.
All right. Here begins our awesome presentation about the early Greeks, specifically the Minoans and Mycenaeans.
Greece is a small country in the southeast of Europe. Greece is near the Mediterranean Sea. The main part of Greece is on a peninsula. The rest of Greece is made up of islands.
Many ancient Greeks made a living from the sea. The rest of Greece is made up of islands. Ancient Greece was split up into smaller areas called city-states.
Greece is surrounded by the Mediterranean, Ionian, and Aegean seas. It is a mountainous country. Small mountain ranges kept villages separated. A lot of Greek villages are isolated on the coast, making the sea an important means of transportation.
Greece has more than 1,400 islands. Finished.
Okay, thanks for watching our presentation.
Next we'll hear specifically about the Minoans.
In 1900 BC, an archaeologist, also Evans, uncovered the ruins of a grand palace that had been the center of the Minoan civilization. The Palace of Knossos revealed the riches of the ancient society. The palace had many rooms, including storerooms, bathrooms, and private quarters for the royal family.
They built their wealth on trade. They traded pottery, stone vases for ivory and metals. They built ships out of oak and cedar trees, which they used to travel, conquer, and trade. The Minoan civilization fell around 1450 BC. Scientists believed it was caused by earthquakes, but some scientists think they were killed by the Mycenaeans, who come from the mainland.
Thanks for watching.
So we're going to talk about those Mycenaeans who may or may not have wiped out the Minoans right now.
The Mycenaeans. The Mycenaeans were originally from Central Asia. The Mycenaean leaders became the first Greek kings. Their warriors became nobles who ruled the people who they conquered. The picture on the right was the ruins at Mycenae. Henrik Schliemann. He discovered one of the walled places in Mycenaean. Oh my God. He named people in the Mycenaean civilizations. What the heck? Oh, Mycenaeans.
What were the Mycenaean kingdoms like? The centerpiece of the palace was placed on a hill. Beyond the walls were farms and estates. The government knew how much wealth everyone had. And the Mycenaeans were full of activity. They had a palace full of the best riches. They kept farms beyond the palace walls. They also kept estates, slaves, and lived.
Now we'll talk about the interactions. We should probably have deleted that. We'll talk about the interactions between those two groups, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. Lean close.
I know, but someone messed up the slides. They scanned.
After the Mycenaeans set up their kingdoms, Minoan traders began to visit Crete. The Mycenaeans began to learn much about their culture. They started copying the Minoans' ways to work with bronze and build their ships. They learned how to use the sun and stars to find their way home or to other destinations. The Mycenaeans even started to worship their chief goddess, the Earth Mother. The Minoans made their wealth by trading with Mycenaeans and other civilizations. They traded as far as Egypt and Syria. There, they traded pottery and stone vases for ivory and other metals. By 2000 BC, the Minoans controlled the Eastern and Mediterranean Sea.
Civilizations. The Minoans were the first civilization that arose in the region.
The Mycenaeans had their leaders as the first Greek kings. The Minoans were not Greek. The Mycenaeans were originally from Central Asia. Warfare. The Mycenaeans invaded the Greek mainland from around 1900 BC. The Mycenaeans conquered Crete and nearby islands. The Mycenaeans won the Trojan War, and the Mycenaeans were prouder of their deeds in battle.
So now we'll talk about the Dark Age of Greece, and you'll hear the phrase Dark Age lots of times in history, but this is the Greek Dark Age.
What is the Dark Age? The Dark Age was a life-changing event that affected the Greeks in many ways. In this time, overseas trade slowed and people became poorer. Farmers could only grow enough food for their families. People stopped teaching others how to write or craft. Before long, the Greeks had completely forgotten their written language and how to craft useful tools or items. This time was named the Dark Age. The Mycenaean civilization had also collapsed due to the earthquakes and fighting among kingdoms. This was really big. How the Dark Age brought change. The Dark Age brought both positive and negative effects on the people. A positive one was the huge population shift. Many Greeks left the mainland and went off to several areas, including the islands of the Aegean Sea and western shores of Asia. A negative effect is that the Greeks were set back really far and were running low on food. How did the Dorians help? As this time stretched on, a Greek-speaking group of the people called the Dorians, who lived in the northern mountains, came down to the south. The Dorians helped out a lot because they brought iron weapons along the way with them. This gave Greece more advanced and useful technology. These iron weapons and farming tools were stronger and cheaper than the ones made of bronze. How the people recovered from the Dark Age. Eventually, people began to recover from the Dark Age. Farmers began to grow food again, which allowed a surplus of food. Trade revived and started again. The increased trade led to a gain of new writings. The Greek alphabet was a very useful and simple system that allowed the Greeks to write down records and stories. The Dark Age may have left the people in destruction, but they were eventually able to recover and become strong again.
So here next to talk to you about the Greek colonies, because as they recovered from the Dark Age, they not only reestablished themselves, but expanded to build some colonies. So now about that. Lean close.
After the Dark Age, they recovered quickly, raising its population. There wasn't much food, so cities sent people to start colonies. Trading. The colonists traded regularly with their parent cities, sending supplies. In return, they received pottery and other goods.
Greeks streamed to the coasts of Italy, France, Spain, North Africa, and Western Asia. With each new colony, Greek culture spread. When Greeks started to make coins, it allowed merchants to trade for other things from other places that are important to growing the industry, such as clay for pottery.
Now we're going to talk to you about that really important part of our objective, SWABOT. We need to really understand what a polis is. So here to talk to you about that, a weird person named Amy Daniel, apparently. Take it away, guys. Lean close.
Polis are a city-state. They were made into city-states after the Dark Age. They were turned into this because nobles who owned large estates had overthrown the kings. So instead of the kings owning all the land, the nobles owned their own land and fought with each other for more power.
An agora was below the Acropolis. Agora had two functions. It was a market and a place where people could meet and debate problems. There's a picture right there.
Temples and altars were built there to honor the many Greek gods and goddesses. Acropolis was a forth-filled area at the top of the hill. They usually used them as safe refuges.
Cities varied in size. Some were huge and some were small. They also varied in population. Nearly 300,000 people lived in Athens by 500 BC. Most cities were smaller, though.
Another important part of your objective is understanding how Greeks originated the idea of citizenship. So here to talk to you about Greek citizenship, take it away, gentlemen. Talk into that, talk loud.
Okay.
Each Greek city-state was run by the citizens. They were members of a political community who treated each other as equals and who have rights and responsibilities. The Greeks were the first people to develop the idea of citizenship. In most Greek city-states, only free native-born men who owned land could be citizens.
Some city-states, such as Athens, dropped the land-owning law requirement. Slaves and foreign-born residents, however, continued to be excluded. Greek citizens also gathered in agora to choose their officials and pass laws. The Greek people had the right to vote and hold office, own property, and defend themselves in court.
Last but certainly not least, we will hear about the citizen soldiers, which became central to the development of ancient Greece. Talk loud into that.
When the Greek citizens achieved citizenship, they were given exclusive rights, but they also had to be a soldier, a hoplite in the Greek army.
Before in early Greece, wars were waged by nobles riding horses and chariots. Later they had hoplites, which were foot soldiers. The hoplites were unable to afford horses, but they still fought just by walking and running. They were also heavily armed with gear and weapons.
When the hoplite soldiers were in war, they used a short sword and a 9-foot spear. The Greek city-states had begun to depend on armies of ordinary citizens, the hoplites, by 700 BC. And that's all you need to know about the hoplite soldiers and the citizens of ancient Greece.